Imagine a tiny country in Europe, barely the size of West Virginia, boldly telling one of the world's largest powers, "This is your last chance to resolve a national security threat." That's exactly what Modus, a top Lithuanian official, said about China. On paper, it sounds almost impossible, a small Baltic nation standing up to a global superpower. Yet, Lithuania didn't just speak tough. It made moves that shook international headlines. The tension is palpable. On one side, Lithuania issues warnings, signaling that it's ready to take a stand. On the other, China's response has been silence. No official statements, no negotiations, just quiet. A wall of calm that hides the storm brewing underneath. Why did Lithuania suddenly adopt this confrontational tone after years of relatively calm relations with China? What sparked this sharp shift, and what could it mean for a country so small, facing off against one of the biggest economies on Earth? By the end of this video, you'll see how a seemingly simple political decision turned into a full-blown diplomatic crisis, affecting trade, industry, and even the daily lives of ordinary people. But first, to understand how Lithuania got here, we need to see where this small nation fits on the global stage. To understand why Lithuania's actions caused such a stir, we first need to know a bit about the country itself. Lithuania is a small nation on the eastern shore of the Baltic Sea. Its land area is only about 65,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of West Virginia. Its population is under 3 million, making it a relatively small player on the world stage. Despite its size, Lithuania has strong ties with Western Europe and the United States. It's a member of the European Union, part of NATO, and uses the euro as its official currency. Politically and economically, Lithuania has aligned itself closely with the West for decades, which has shaped its foreign policy and security strategy. When it comes to China, Lithuania's stance has historically been neutral, not particularly close, but not hostile either. Trade still flowed, companies shipped goods back and forth, and embassies existed in both countries. On the surface, things seemed stable. But here's the twist. Even a small country can make big waves if it chooses to act boldly. Lithuania's 2021 moves would demonstrate just that, showing the world that size doesn't always determine influence when national interests or principles are at stake. Now that we understand Lithuania's place in Europe and its general approach to China, the next question is, what exactly did it do to trigger one of the most serious diplomatic disputes in recent European history? That brings us to the event that changed everything, the Taiwan office controversy. Everything changed in 2021 when Lithuania made a bold move that caught China's attention, and not in a good way. In its capital, Vilnius, Lithuania established a new institution called the Taiwanese Representative Office. At first glance, it might seem like a small detail, just a name on a building. But in diplomacy, words carry immense weight. Here's why. Most countries that host Taiwan's offices carefully avoid using the word Taiwan. Instead, they use Taipei, like in the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office. This naming avoids the appearance of recognizing Taiwan as an independent country, which could anger Beijing. Lithuania ignored this convention. By insisting on Taiwanese in the office's name, it was seen by China as a direct challenge to the One China principle, a core part of Beijing's foreign policy. The timing also mattered. Lithuania withdrew from the 17+1 cooperation mechanism, a forum China uses to engage Central and Eastern European countries. Lithuanian officials publicly criticized it, calling it a tool for China to divide Europe. For a small nation, these moves sent a signal. Lithuania was willing to openly challenge China on issues Beijing considers non-negotiable. In other words, a single word on a sign became the spark that ignited a diplomatic storm. What followed would show just how seriously China would respond, and how deeply Lithuania would feel the consequences. Lithuania's bold move didn't go unnoticed, and China responded with swift and severe measures. Almost overnight, Lithuania's trade with China hit a wall. In early December 2021, Lithuanian exporters discovered that their country had disappeared from China's customs declaration system. Simply put, Lithuania's goods could no longer enter Chinese ports. Containers sat idle, shipments were blocked, and trade that had flowed for decades suddenly ground to a halt. The impact was immediate and dramatic. For example, over 20,000 bottles of Lithuanian rum sent to a Chinese port were refused entry. Another shipment of 50,000 tons of dairy products had to be sent back. By the time it returned, much of it was spoiled, unfit even for livestock. Factories that relied on exports to China watched helplessly as their products became stranded halfway across the globe. The economic shock was massive. Lithuania's exports to China fell from €320 million in 2020 to just €40 million in 2022. Almost a complete wipeout. Small and medium-sized businesses, which formed the backbone of Lithuania's manufacturing sector, bore the brunt. Orders disappeared, supply chains were disrupted, and jobs were lost. By mid-2023, over 300 companies had gone bankrupt, and 8,000 workers found themselves unemployed. Even attempts at mediation failed. The European Union tried to step in and negotiate, but China refused all requests. Lithuania had no choice but to watch as the economic fallout escalated, a clear reminder that challenging a global superpower comes with real costs. The consequences, however, didn't stop at trade. China's retaliation quickly rippled through logistics and industrial networks, creating an even deeper crisis for Lithuania. China's response went beyond trade alone. It also disrupted Lithuania's place in the global logistics and industrial network. Lithuania had been a small but important node on the China-Europe railway network, a route that sends freight from China to Europe. Normally, trains would pass through Vilnius, unload or transfer goods, and continue to ports in Klaipėda or further west to Germany and Poland. In 2020, more than 600 freight trains passed through Lithuania each year. After the Taiwan office controversy, China suspended direct freight to Lithuania. Containers were rerouted through Belarus and Poland, bypassing Lithuanian ports entirely. Around 200 freight routes were canceled or redirected. The impact was immediate. Lithuania's rail freight volume dropped nearly 40%, costing roughly €500 million in annual revenue. At the same time, the port of Klaipėda, once a key outlet for Baltic trade, saw cargo throughput fall 21%, hitting its lowest level in almost a decade. The ripple effect extended into manufacturing. Many European companies, including German giants like Continental, were forced to reduce or stop using Lithuanian suppliers, fearing customs problems or delivery delays. Factories sat idle, workers lost jobs, and smaller companies providing components to larger firms went bankrupt. What started as a diplomatic disagreement now threatened Lithuania's entire industrial ecosystem. This story shows that even a small country can create big waves, but it also illustrates the real-world consequences of challenging a global power. Economic losses, supply chain disruptions, and industrial setbacks became daily realities. And while businesses struggled, Lithuania's diplomatic isolation only deepened, creating a new layer of challenges that went far beyond trade. As Lithuania felt the economic shock, its diplomatic ties with China deteriorated sharply, creating a new crisis. By the end of 2021, China downgraded its diplomatic relations with Lithuania, recalling ambassadors and leaving only a skeleton staff at both embassies. The last registered Chinese diplomat left Lithuania in mid-2025, and attempts to re-enter the country were blocked. Today, the Chinese embassy in Vilnius stands largely empty, a silent reminder of the standoff. This isolation had very real consequences for ordinary people. Several Lithuanian citizens ended up detained in China, accused of violating local laws. Under normal circumstances, Lithuania's diplomats could have visited them, coordinated legal assistance, or communicated with family members. Without an embassy or consular staff on the ground, there was almost no way to provide support. Families were left anxious, powerless, and frustrated, highlighting the human cost of the dispute. The political and operational fallout extended to businesses as well. Many Lithuanian companies rely on Chinese equipment for production. Previously, Chinese engineers could visit to repair machinery or upgrade systems. After the diplomatic breakdown, visas became extremely difficult, leaving essential equipment idle and factories unable to operate efficiently. Lithuania was essentially cut off from its own industrial lifeline. This situation underscores a stark lesson. Political bravado can come at a high price. Tough rhetoric might make headlines, but without diplomatic channels to back it up, even a small country like Lithuania can find itself isolated, vulnerable, and facing real-world consequences. After years of tension, Lithuania began signaling that it wanted to repair relations with China, but the road ahead remained uncertain. By 2024, new leadership under Prime Minister Paluckas started sending quiet messages of compromise. Key figures, including President Nada and Foreign Minister Landsberg, publicly expressed hope to resume dialogue and improve relations. Even Modis, the same official who had once issued the last chance warning, began showing signs of pragmatism. Despite these statements, China has remained silent. Months have passed with no official response, highlighting a critical reality. In diplomacy, words alone are rarely enough. Beijing's position is firm. The Taiwan office issue touches on core national interests that are non-negotiable. Until Lithuania addresses this, formal relations cannot fully resume. This stage of the story shows a tension between intention and action. Lithuania is now attempting to bridge the gap, signaling willingness to cooperate and acknowledging the costs of isolation. Yet, the unresolved issues mean the situation remains tense and unpredictable. Will China respond to Lithuania's overtures, or will silence continue to define their interaction? The answers will determine not only Lithuania's economic recovery, but also the well-being of its citizens abroad. And as we look at this turning point, the story teaches a broader lesson about diplomacy. Courage and assertiveness must be balanced with strategy, or the consequences can be severe. Lithuania's story is a powerful lesson in the high stakes of international diplomacy. A small country can make bold moves, challenge a superpower, and draw global attention. But as we've seen, these actions come with real costs. Economic disruption, industrial setbacks, diplomatic isolation, and even the safety of citizens abroad. China's response shows that some national interests are non-negotiable. Core principles, like the One China policy, are treated as red lines. For Lithuania, words alone aren't enough. Actions must align with Beijing's expectations if dialogue and trade are to resume. At the same time, Lithuania's attempts at compromise highlight another truth. Diplomacy is a delicate balance. Courage and assertiveness can earn respect, but without careful strategy, they can also create serious vulnerabilities. The question remains, will Lithuania's efforts to repair relations succeed, or will the consequences of its previous actions linger for years to come? One thing is certain, this story is far from over. And for small countries facing global powers, it's a vivid reminder that every political decision carries weight, sometimes in ways that affect ordinary lives in unexpected ways. If you want to stay updated on this evolving situation and learn more about stories like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We'll continue bringing you insights, analysis, and the real-world impact behind the headlines.